Hello, David here, and the project for today is replacing the cooling in the cooling system using antifreeze. This is something you have to do every 2 to 5 years, depending upon the brand of antifreeze you use. This is a Ford Contour with a 2.5 liter Duratec V6 motor. Since it was made in '98, I can use this plain old press stone. The later model Fords require a certain Ford spec antifreeze. Capacity on the cooling system is 3 gallons, so a 50-50 mixture means you need 1.5 gallons of antifreeze and then fill the rest with water. I prefer to use a straight antifreeze rather than the pre-50-50 mix because you don't get all the water out of the system, so no matter how much 50-50 antifreeze you get in, I don't believe you get a real 50-50 mix in the system if you're adding a 50-50 antifreeze. So let's get started. Make sure the engine is cool so that it's not pressurized. Once the engine's been run, it's going to be under pressure. You have to wait for it to cool down before you can take the radiator cap off. Take the radiator cap off. It's not really a radiator cap, it's a coolant reservoir cap. It's right here. This is warm but not hot, so pressure should be down. There we go. By taking the cap off, that'll allow more antifreeze. There, hear that? There was a little bit of pressure in there. Not much, but if there's too much pressure, it's going to come shooting out and it could scald you, so you got to be careful about that. Now that the cap's off, atmospheric pressure should enter the coolant recovery tank when I open the petcock at the bottom of the radiator. I'm going to get out as much as I can. In the old days, I would have drained the radiator, closed it off, and then put my flushing tee on and flushed it, but that would have gotten more antifreeze in the environment. To be environmentally sensitive nowadays, you got to get as much antifreeze as you can to the recycling center. So I'm going to collect as much antifreeze as I can, then I'm going to close the drain valve, then I'm going to add some water, run the engine up to operating temperature so that does a complete mix, and then I'll do that drain again so I can get as much antifreeze out as possible. I'll do it 1 or 2 times until I get some clear water in the system, drain it, close off the drain, and then I'm going to put my flushing tee on and flush the system with water. I've got the car parked on a slight incline with the nose pointed down so that I could get as much antifreeze out as possible. I'm going to jack it up and put it on jack stands just so I could get access to the drain plug, and then I'm going to lower the car off the jack stands and let it all drain out. And you will find that drain plug on the right side of the radiator. Let's get underneath there and show you. Sorry for all the movement. This is for the air conditioner. That's a radiator right there. There's a screw right there. You could either use a slotted or a Phillips. Let's see if I can get around there to see that. Do you see that? I can't see the viewfinder. Oh great, my flashlight's in the way. Got one of these huge Phillips screwdrivers that'll fit. Turn it out, and all the stuff's gonna start pouring. Make sure you don't leave this stuff unattended. Get rid of it or cover it because it's got a sweet taste and it's highly poisonous. So I know it looks like Kool-Aid, but you gotta resist the urge to drink it. Don't let any animals drink it and they'll die a horrible death. Guess I ought to get my drain up. There's my drain pan. Okay, get back to live action. There we go. Whoa, getting all over the place. Let's lower the car down and see how much water comes out. Holy cow, that wasn't even worth it. Not much is coming out. Just kind of dribbling. Okay, I'm going to seal it up, put some water in there and run it. Before I seal the drain on the radiator, I'm going to run some fresh water in the system and let it run out to my drain pan just to get as much antifreeze out as I can. Putting all the antifreeze in the empty milk jugs. When the water runs clear through the radiator, then I'm going to plug the drain and add water to the system, run the motor, because there's still a lot of antifreeze in the engine block. The flushing tee is right there. Make sure you loosen it to let some air in so you don't get any air bubbles. If you have overheating problem, it's probably because you have some air bubbles. And you can either, looks like all the air's out because the water's running out of there, so that is a good thing. Okay, I'm running the car up to operating temperature. It's still cold. And on a lot of cars, you got to turn the heat on to open up the valve to the heater core. I don't know if this car has a valve on the heater core or not. I'm just going to turn on the heat valve. I don't know if it's a blend door or just a valve on the heater core, but just to play it safe, I'll be running some heat through here while the motor's warming up. Excuse me. Then I'm going to let it cool down and I'm going to drain the antifreeze out again. I got about a gallon and a half out of that last drain, including running some water through the radiator. Before it gets fully warmed up, I'm going to run it with the cap off of the reservoir tank just to let some air bubbles escape. But you got to cap it before it gets too hot. I just don't know when the exact time for that is. Okay, everything's cooled down and I drained the radiator again. And you can see it picked up some antifreeze from the engine block. I don't want to do this heat up and cool down cycle again because that takes about 2 hours. Looking at my drain plug and I see that the gasket's all chewed up. It's probably going to cause a leak, so I'm going to find a properly sized O-ring from this Harbor Freight O-ring kit. There's a million sizes in here. Shouldn't be any reason why I can find one to fit. Look at all these O-rings. This is like O-ring heaven. Okay, so here's the drill for the flushing. With the drain plug out of the radiator, so the radiator could drain, and the radiator cap off or the expansion tank cap off, this fitting goes into either the radiator or the expansion tank. And I've hooked this hose up to it so that I could collect the water, put it in the buckets, and then I flush it down the toilet, because I usually end up with about 10 or 15 gallons. And you just run it until the water starts to run clear of any antifreeze. And you'll be able to tell because it'll be clear. So then you hook this up to the garden hose and to the flushing tee. It could hook up either way, but it's only supposed to go one way because this is a one-way valve, so you don't suck up any antifreeze into your house water. So the yellow side goes to the garden hose, and it says it right there. I don't know if you can see that. Black side goes to the flushing tee. And I noticed my expansion tank is a little bit wider than this, so I'm going to have to put some tape around this and pretty much hold it in by hand while it's running. Engine has to be cool. First thing you do is start the water, get the water running, and then you start the motor with the heater on, and then let the motor run. And when the water starts running clear, then you shut the motor off, and then you shut the hose off. Here's the first bucket. You can see the color of the antifreeze in there. And there's about 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons in there. And here's the second bucket. You can see that it's running pretty clear. So that's why I stopped the motor and turned the water off. So it didn't take long for it to run clear. It is a messy process. I'm sure there's more advanced technology available these days, and this flushing T is probably showing my age. Let's see if I could purge any remaining water out of the system by pumping some air through the flushing T. I got 30 pounds of pressure in my compressor. Let's see what happens. I don't see any water running out. Oh, just a few drops are coming out. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I'm ready to start. Could seal the radiator drain, and I'm going to add 1.5 gallons of antifreeze through the flushing T, and then when that's filled, then I'm going to add the rest through the expansion tank. I just don't have a good angle to get that funnel on the flushing T, and besides, by adding the water through the expansion tank, it's going to eventually get to the flushing T. I am going to keep the cap off the flushing T, and I'm going to watch the flushing T. When antifreeze starts coming out of the flushing T, I'm going to cap the flushing T properly so I don't lose any antifreeze, and that will get air bubbles out of the system. And here it comes. You can see the antifreeze is pushing water out, so I'm going to wait a little bit for the color to turn green, and then I'm going to cap it immediately. It took about 3/4 gallon to get to this point. 3/4 gallon of antifreeze. But I'm going to save this empty bottle from the first gallon of the antifreeze, because I'm going to mix up some 50-50 in here. I'm going to fill it I'm going to fill it with distilled water and an equal amount of leftover antifreeze, which I might use in the second bottle because that's going to be half full, but I'm just going to keep this around just in case I need it. Well, the expansion tank is full, and there's still some water coming out of the flushing T, and I'm not quite at 1.5 gallons of antifreeze. You know, it'd be nice if the engineers at Prestone put a little clear strip along the side vertically so you can see where you're at. Maybe even mark the container for 1/4, 1/2, 3/4. Do I have to think of everything? It looks like I'm not going to need any water to top off the system because the expansion tank is full. So any topping off I do with any air that burps out of the system when I run it through some hot and cold cycles, I'm just going to have to top off with the antifreeze till I get to the 1/2 gallon mark. We're about 3/4 inch over the max level on the expansion tank. I didn't have to add any water. I probably won't have to. I'm going to run it for a couple of days and check the level. If it's low, I'm going to add some more antifreeze because it probably needs about, I don't know, 10 or 20 more ounces of antifreeze. I'm going to end this video here. I want to thank you for watching. Consider liking and subscribing, and I wish all the best to you. Bye now.